It's a subdued Indianapolis on this Grand Prix weekend. The USA still in a state of shock. At the Motor Speedway, there's support and sympathy from F1, and the show goes on.
I personally had felt that it was the right thing to do. We had a shorter consideration with the Indy Racing League's final event of the year, the weekend that followed, but we had 2 weeks before the U.S. Grand Prix, and so it was clear to me that the right thing to do was do everything in our power to make sure that this event came off.
Hello there, welcome to our coverage of the qualifying hour. We have a lovely, cool, crisp, autumnal day here, temperature around about 18 degrees, but a big contrast to all the razzmatazz we had when we came here last year. Quick word with Mark and with Tony. Tony, at Monza, you said we should come here, but with our heads bowed. How do you feel now we've arrived?
I mean, everyone's still quite solemn about it, but it is business as usual, and people are sort of quite uplifted by the fundraising that's going on. For example, the sponsors of the US Grand Prix have pledged $3 million towards the victims. So everyone's upbeat in that respect.
Mark, misgivings from the drivers a couple of weeks ago, but they're all here, including the Schumachers.
Yeah, the Schumacher brothers are here, but everything's back to normal. The guys are here, the cars are here, everybody's fired up for this weekend's event, and I'm sure it's going to be a great one, but it is business as usual, as Tony says.
Absolutely, we're all set to go then. Before the action, let me just remind you of the standings. Michael Schumacher, a massive 50 points clear of David Coulthard. Coulthard under pressure from Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher. Monza winner Montoya, he's overtaken Hakkinen, and Hakkinen was quickest on his 33rd birthday yesterday. Meantime, in the constructors, Williams could still overhaul McLaren. Very interesting behind them. Sauber, British American Racing, Jordan, even Benetton chasing that 4th place. Right, let's take a closer look at the circuit. One of the shortest on the calendar, just over 2.5 miles, including a full throttle stretch of over 20 seconds. That's the longest in F1. Mark and Martin Brundle are at the first right-hander.
Here we are down at turn 1. A vast expanse of famous Indianapolis tarmac. Doesn't really look much standing here, but in fact it's probably one of the finest places in the world to see Formula One drivers wheel to wheel.
I would agree with you. They're going to be approaching 200 miles an hour, drafting each other. Plenty of places to try and make a move, and lots of open space to try different lines.
From here on in it gets quite Mickey Mouse, doesn't it? And it's very much a circuit of two halves. But it's not so much fun to drive a Formula One car around this type of tightening radius corner.
But this is one of those tracks where it's just compromise for the teams and drivers, driving around and then setting the cars up. They want to make the car as slippery as possible for the straights, but still try and find that mechanical grip for these slow-speed corners.
Yeah, very much a follow the leader around this part of the racetrack. But here's something I've never seen before, Mark. Somebody's ironed the gravel trap, it seems.
You're right, it's a manicured gravel trap.
I don't know whether it will slow the cars down. I guess we'll have to wait and find out through the weekend. Now, this is what we mean about the Mickey Mouse part of the racetrack. Listen to the traction control, constantly reining that car back in. It's so frustrating behind the wheel. You can never get up and running. But ahead of you, a simple-looking right-hander. But it's very important. Let's find out why. Turn 11 is absolutely critical. A Formula One car will not lift the throttle again until the wide turn 1 we talked about earlier on. And there's still an awful long way to go. Turn 12, 155 miles an hour already. And the banking beginning to build, then the long 13, the real banked corner. You know about super speedways, Mark. What have they got to be looking for?
Well, when these guys get onto the banking for the first time, they've got to pick the sweet spot of the corner. They've got to try and pick up the apex. And of course, the banking's going to generate more force. They're going to get a lot more grip out of their car. But it's going to be a new experience for some of those new guys on the block.
That's for sure. But you can actually follow and pick up a slipstream in these banked corners, can't you? Unlike a normal corner where you wash out in the dirty air. So you can start hauling them in even before you get onto that famous long pit straightaway.
Exactly, and that extra mile an hour or 2 miles an hour with that draft is going to be critical by the time they get into turn 1.
Mark, just listening to some of the drivers, they don't like that infield, Mickey Mousey, go-karty they've been calling it.
Well, the problem is they've got that nice bank corner, that big long straight, and then they do the infield, and there's no flow. They can't get no rhythm going, and we see a lot of the guys making mistakes on it. But yeah, Mickey Mouse is the right terminology.
Well, Mickey Schumacher has been quickest today, hasn't he? Hakkinen best yesterday, Schumacher quickest in both sessions, but a bit of a problem for the Ferrari, Tony.
Mick Schumacher, the cobbler, you mean, Jim? But yeah, failing oil pressure on the Ferrari, what a rare sight that is. I think we have to go back to Nürburgring European Grand Prix when he was on the warm-up laps of the Grand Prix itself. He broke down, he went back on a motorcycle. and so the car was towed back. But he's not in too bad a mood, actually, Schumacher here.
Good, thank you very much indeed. And there's David Coulthard presented Mika Häkkinen with a cake on his 33rd birthday yesterday. Michael Schumacher, though, going so quickly already, 2.5 seconds inside last year's pole. Indy qualifying is next. You're back with us at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They call this place the motor racing capital of the world. Emotional weekend for us. It's Murray Walker's last commentaries on ITV. What a fuss they've been making of him this weekend. There he is on his way to the commentary box. The first time I think I've seen him on his own. Everybody keen to say goodbye and thank you to our Murray. Your thoughts on that, Mark?
Very good, but two guys interesting for me, Nick Heidfeld and Alonso. Great 17th position on the grid in front of Villeneuve.
Terrific talent, Alonso. Tony?
It was a fabulous session, over 3 seconds faster than pole time last year. 7 changes of pole, 3 different cars and drivers amongst that lot. It was tremendously exciting.
Michael Schumacher, though, the pole sitter again.
I think that's an amazing performance, considering that they'd gone for the harder compound of tyre, as we understand, because James would be spotting those special codes on the side of the tyre. And I felt that maybe he was being about 3rd place at the end of that, but he proved it wrong.
Great effort from Häkkinen.
Yeah, Häkkinen, but I tell you what the interesting point with this is that he's actually working with Mark Williams this weekend, who's the test engineer. Great relationship there, and it seems to have inspired him, and you've seen the old Mika, and it doesn't look like a guy who's going to retirement, does it?
Just can't get on pole, though, can he? Because of Michael Schumacher, Tony.
No, he can't at all, and they've tweaked that Ferrari up a little bit more, and he's wound himself a little bit more. It's amazing that this man was considering not coming to Indianapolis, and Luca Badoa, the test driver, was probably going to be in his place. Out he went then, incredible 11.7.
OK, thanks to you both. Let's get the thoughts of some of the key characters in that qualifying session.
Michael, you didn't go out for your final ride in winning the race.
Michael Schumacher then right back in the mood after those Monza misgivings. So this American Grand Prix is going to be Murray Walker's farewell commentary. Murray's having to handle tributes from every area of Formula One. Minardi and European aviation owner Paul Stoddart laid on a flight with all the trimmings for Murray to mark his European swan song on the way back from Monza. Heck of a trip it was too. He's come down to earth and has been collating his memoirs of Grand Prix racing stateside.
Formula One has been struggling for acceptance in America ever since 1950. There have been 44 races from 9 different venues, from Long Beach to Las Vegas and Detroit to Dallas. But last year, Formula One seemed finally to have cracked it when over 230,000 people poured into Indianapolis, the modestly self-styled world capital of auto racing. They saw a great race, but there'd be plenty of others on the way.
In 1959, the race was at Sebring in Florida, and less than 5 seconds covered the Coopers of race leader Bruce McLaren, Jack Brabham, and Monaco's Maurice Trintignant. To John Cooper's delight, Bruce won the race by a mere half second, but Brabham took the championship despite having to push his car over the line. For 20 years, Watkins Glen hosted the American Grand Prix, and in 1973, it saw a fabulous race between Ronnie Peterson and James Hunt. But it was a sad weekend, for Frenchman Francois Sévère had been killed in practice. Believe it or not, for 2 incredible years, America's Grand Prix was held on the car park at Caesars Palace Casino at Las Vegas. But the racing was still good, especially in 1981, when Australia's Alan Jones destroyed his Williams teammate Carlos Reutemann psychologically to win the race and give Brabham's Nelson Piquet the world title.
There is the world champion, actually becoming world champion of 1981.
Long Beach in California was a superb and popular venue, and 8 races were held there before its demise. 1983 was sensational. After problems in qualifying, John Watson and Niki Lauda started their McLarens from 22nd and 23rd on the grid, before storming through the field. 4 laps from the end, Watson passed Lauda and won. A superb achievement. John Watson has won the Long Beach Grand Prix of 1983. In 1984, the US Grand Prix was held in ferocious heat on a crumbling street circuit at Dallas. Keke Rosberg from Chile, Finland won, but the hero of the day was Nigel Mansell, who led, broke down, and then gallantly tried to push his Lotus home. Venue number 8 for America's Formula One race was at Phoenix, Arizona, and its street circuit was as unsuitable as Dallas had been. But no one will ever forget 1990, when the spectacular Jean Alesi muscled his Tyrrell past superstar Ayrton Senna's McLaren to lead the race. Senna won, but Alesi took the glory. And so to Indianapolis last year, a brand new circuit incorporating a banked turn from the fabled superspeedway. To the delight of the massive crowd, it was a Ferrari 1-2 for Michael Schumacher and teammate Rubens Barrichello. But in an atmosphere of mourning and concern, this year's race will inevitably lack the magic of 2000. Hopefully, though, in spite of this, it will heighten America's interest in Formula One.
It's a great starting time for this year's American Grand Prix, 7 o'clock this Sunday evening. Join us, ITV1 from 6:30, highlights 11:35, repeats ITV2 late on Monday. And by the way, log on to the ITV F1 website for a terrific competition and all sorts of other information as well. Whatever you do, be there on ITV1 for the race. You wouldn't want to disappoint Murray, would you? The Formula One paddock had a special bash for him. Terrific turnout from the teams and the drivers. Michael Schumacher staying till the end. For Murray and Martin, read Murray and Michael.
We're watching Ralph Schumacher, son of world champion Michael Schumacher. Now the boot is on the other Schumacher.
If you'd like to